Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me again here on the Dark Paranormal Season 25. This is our second episode, so of course, it's only our second episode on video too. For anyone listening on audio, you can go over to YouTube to watch the videos, etc. I do need to give a huge shout out and thank you to our Patreon team and to all of you guys as well, the ones who aren't Patreons, because obviously the debut episode went out a good few days late as we battled with video technology. So a big thank you for your patience there. But I think the episode delivered. I think it was a great experience. I don't mean my performance because I'm just reading what I'm sent. But the experience, I believe, was excellent. Now, I mentioned our Patreons there, and we will mention them again at the end because they're a wonderful team of like-minded individuals who, as a Patreon, have access to over 250 hours of Patreon-only submitted experiences. Or should I say, experiences submitted by our listeners that are too short for a main episode, and therefore we collate them and we put them in a show called Dark Bites, which goes out every single week of the year, just for Patreons. And we also do another show, just for Patreons, every week of the year, called After Dark, where I take a look at episodes like last week's, and we try and dismantle them, and you see, well, my thought process in action, as I try to theorize why things may have taken place. But today, we have an experience which is my kind of favorite sort to receive because it amazes me where this show goes, where this show travels and reaches. And today's experience comes into us from a listener from Paraguay in South America. Now, it does ask a very interesting question, which is, can evil or psychic ability be passed down through generations? Can it be hereditary? It's a question we've asked on this show numerous times, and despite the amount of times we've covered it, I'm still no closer to an answer, and I'm sure, despite theories being abundant, no one really knows. But all of these pieces of evidence, like today's experience, are sort of collating into some form of undeniable proof. So please, join me as we once more lower the lights. Make yourself comfortable, and of course, leave your disbelief at the door, as we hear all about Possessed in Paraguay. I'm anonymous. I'm writing to you from Paraguay, South America. That alone, I'm sure, would be more than enough to make this story particular. I would assume it's not very common to receive submissions from down here. English is also not my first language, obviously, and I'll try and be as eloquent as I can. I want to remain anonymous because this entire experience involves my family, and they don't talk about these things, and soon you'll understand why. I've been meaning to write to you since I found your podcast 2 years ago. But it's like what everybody says. Almost everyone begins by saying how hard it actually is to write and submit. And I'm sorry to begin exactly the same way, but I empathize with all of them. This is not easy. This story doesn't have an ending nor a conclusion. It's an ongoing thing that's there, dependent on where I go or who I'm with. So I wish to remain anonymous. This country is small, and although it's a country, everybody still seems to know each other. It's not something I can comfortably expose, and I'm not sure I'm prepared to convince people that the rational reality that we all live in is not the only one. That there are other forces, energies, planes that go beyond our normal comprehension. so I thought this is the right place for me to share. I've so many stories of all kinds that I could write about, but it would be better to start by giving a general understanding of how it all began. To give an initial headline, I see and sense things that other people can't. Now this includes the dead, spirits, good and evil, light and dark, and also includes meeting someone for the first time and sensing a dark and mean energy, indicating that they're not a good person. Or I sense a warm, beautiful light about somebody, creating an immediate first connection. Also, when I'm stressed or emotionally charged, tension releases in a physical way. To give an example, a barbecue grill going into flames all of a sudden, or light bulbs exploding around me. Once a ring broke on the finger of a person in my proximity. I don't exactly know how these things happen, but since I'm an introvert, I tend to hold my emotions inside so tight until they have to find some way to come out. And it appears they do it like this. It doesn't happen every day, of course, but it could be considered as a recurrent thing. Being in my 50s and having felt things all of my life, in terms of entities, I see things and I feel them, sometimes either or sometimes both. I've been seeing shadow people all of my life, but thanks to the podcast, I understand the actual concept of shadow people. There was an episode when somebody described them in vivid detail. Tall, slender, sometimes with a coat and a top hat. Well, I paused the podcast when I heard that, because that's what I've been seeing. And then there were more details on episodes. Darker than dark, peripheral vision, etc. It was incredible because the moment I put a name to it, and the moment I realised this is so common and I'm not the only one, shadow people seemed to lose their power over me. Now they're just there, now and then. I can see them in the corner of my eye and pass by them. In my case, it isn't only interesting and entertaining, but informative and enlightening. I can also feel different entities attached to a place right when I enter a room. The times I've moved from house to house, I've always gone first and stayed in the empty new houses in silence, trying to work out if it was a good place to move or not. I recently moved again, and I was fortunate enough to pick up a brand new apartment. No baggage, no history attached, just new. And it feels amazing. In fact, I'm a couple of months in, and I've been avoiding having people over. I'm charging it with my own energy, shielding it, if you will, before people start coming over with their energy. Because this is the thing. I think this whole thing is hereditary. To explain that, I have to go back to my time with my childhood, so bear with me during this part. My grandmother on my mother's side was a medium, one who channeled entities in order to cure people of their diseases with her hands whilst the entities were inside of her. This was very, very normal growing up, to witness at least. We used to live right next door to her, and we'd go and visit her after school, and she'd used to sit on a big large window overlooking the street. So I'd go running to her house, and I always saw her through that big window before getting to the door. By the look in her eyes, I'd immediately know if it was in fact my grandma, or somebody or someone else. And I'd stop dead in my tracks if I saw somebody else in her eyes, through her eyes. And I'd turn and I'd return home, only to try again later to see if she was back to being her normal self. She was part of a group with some sort of religious connotations. Other people were doing the same, calling themselves brothers and sisters. And she always channeled the same entities. One was an old male who smoked cigars. Another was an indigenous male who drank whiskey and an old woman and a little child. I don't quite remember if it was a boy or a girl, but I vividly remember her laughing and playing on the floor with candles and honey like a child. There was a ritual they did when they all channeled child spirits playing with candy and blessing the candy. Later, we would eat those candies, and every time we did, we felt sick, or we got a fever, or we felt under the weather. She kept those candies in her closet. We would attend her ceremonies as a family every other Sunday. As everybody else went to Mass in a major Roman Catholic country, we went to her ceremonies, in which she and her brothers and sisters dressed in white gowns and robes, and they stood up channeling entities. Us attendees in a line would stay in silence and then slowly approach them. The people in the robes, including my grandma, would then touch and brush people's hands, arms, and feet in order to heal illness, alleviate pain, or charge them with positive energy, getting rid of the negative. Brushing like brushing the sand off at a beach. I wouldn't know how else to describe it. Again, this was all totally normal for me. We didn't question it. It was part of our everyday lives and our family. We didn't talk about it, but I had so many questions. I was fascinated by the whole thing. So yeah, it was normal, and I went to a Catholic school all my school years, but never told anyone. I never mentioned it. I guess I thought I was going to be judged or accused of something evil, or maybe not from God. As I'm writing this, I'm aware of how bizarre this even sounds. But it is what it is, and it is true. Years later, my grandma's sons and daughters, for some reason I still don't understand, kind of forbid her to continue with all of this. I feel like they tried to erase who she was. And they all reverted quickly to Catholicism, fanatically. They left her suppressing her own abilities. Until today, the family doesn't talk about all this, which is mind-blowing to me. We're not supposed to talk about any of it. And every time I brought it up, they diverted the conversation and still do. We continued with our lives, including my grandma, as if nothing ever happened. Including me now, who gets an overwhelming sadness when I think about it, and when I think about her, who's already passed. I overheard my uncle saying that on her deathbed, she kept saying that she was afraid of the dark man in the corner of the room. It was like she was hallucinating. Maybe she was actually seeing things tormenting her. I'll never know. I wasn't living there at the time. I was living abroad. Coming back to my own experience, sometime in my youth, after my grandmother had quit her practices, I became obsessed with the paranormal. Obsessed. I guess this obsession wasn't new because being a witness to all of this with my grandma since an early age, it was always so interesting to me, so mysterious, hidden, and in a way, forbidden. Of course, it meant it was quite, therefore, an unstoppable attraction. And I began with the Ouija board. Started as a game with friends, and we would hang out like a normal group of people, and I always introduced the board. I was the one in charge, giving the instructions, like nobody takes their hand away until we give closure, things like that. Guiding and asking questions. All the normal stuff at first. Is someone here with us? What's your name? How did you die? And then it became darker. Because I was bored. I started asking questions that didn't feel enough for me. So I started challenging whatever or whoever we were supposedly in contact with. I don't believe you, I said. If you're really here, then do something. This is when things physically started happening. The lights started flickering, objects would move around, mobile phones and landlines rung at the exact same moment when I asked if this thing could do it. Cold breezes came sweeping into the room, and the planchette was going crazy, moving in circles back and forth from yes to no violently. I remember one time when the car inside the garage moved slowly on its own and ended up lightly pressed against the gate. At that time, the Ouija board didn't really live up to my expectation. It didn't respond to all of my demands, so I quit that session frustrated. It wasn't until we went outside that we saw the car, and a friend of mine started crying out of fear. But I felt super excited. The thing is, I don't really know if these things were generated by actual entities being summoned by the Ouija board, or if it was me, my mind. What if my mind is so strong in that way that I made these things happen? Or in addition, what if the desire for things to physically materialize actually made them materialize? I think a lot about those questions, but my friends didn't want to play the Ouija board anymore. One by one, they refused to be part of it. It was too intense. I was so intense, and sometimes I feel like they were afraid of me. Because of this, and trying to answer the questions that I've just stated, I started talking to that Ouija board by myself. On one hand, because I wanted to test my mind, on the other, because I found it entertaining. I remember I would sleep with that Ouija board under my pillow. Total obsession. But it then began to scare me. It didn't scare me before, it excited me. But now, I felt unsafe, I felt watched, I felt accompanied, jumpy, overly aware of sounds, afraid of the dark, unsafe. And that was the first time I began seeing shadow figures. It still didn't stop me though, until one night when I was out with my friends and I begged them to do it again with me, all together as a group, because I didn't want to do it in my house anymore. And my friends refused to go to their houses as well, so we went to a public park, a little neighbourhood square. We walked right to the middle of it, so we wouldn't be seen, or we thought we wouldn't, and we sat on the ground and proceeded with the board. Again, it was me in charge. I don't remember what I asked or who we talked to. Even today, I only remember it gave me a weird name. Not in Spanish or any language we could name or identify. I honestly don't remember the actual name. I'm not sure if I erased it from my memory due to trauma or I simply forgot, since it was 30 years ago, give or take. But I do remember the incident. There we were, sat on the ground, hands on the planchette, and suddenly it didn't feel normal. I began feeling sick, ill, nauseous, cold. My head felt so heavy that it felt like I couldn't hold it up straight. My head went down, my chin to my chest. That heavy. It wasn't a violent drop, nothing like that. But it gradually dropped down and I felt a strong pressure in the back of my neck, as if a very heavy hand was pushing me down. In a split second, and I say that without really knowing how much time did pass, I remembered my grandmother. I remembered how it was when she channeled entities and how her head dropped, and when she lifted it up, it was already somebody else. I remembered how she did it so smoothly, so in control. I remembered when I heard her saying that these abilities pass on from generation to generation, especially amongst women. I remember she talked about this when my aunt, my mother's sister, had an episode. My family, the women, my grandmother, had two daughters, and one of them, my mother, And my mother also had 2 daughters, my sister and me, and it freaked me out. I was shaking out of the cold and fear. I don't know how, but I shook off the fear, and I resumed that Ouija board session and closed it. My friends were not fully aware of exactly what was going on with me, and we remained seated in a circle in the middle of that square, staying very silent. But all of a sudden, a man starts approaching. It was a private security guard, maybe doing rounds for the houses, but I couldn't see his face. He had on a hat, and the lighting at the place just wasn't good enough. We heard his voice ask what we were doing, and my friend said, "Oh, we were just playing. We're leaving now." He then replied, "You shouldn't play with things you don't know." Then heavy silence. I knew he was talking to me, directly to me. Well, I stood up and I told everyone to get the hell out of there, and we ran towards the car. We were so anxious that we entered the car through just one door, all of us. It was the driver's side. All 4 of us, head against each other's backs, pushing each other into the car. One of my friends hurt their knee, another their head, but we got the hell out of there. We were even laughing at the end because we were young and it's what you do. It was an adventure, a story to tell. And I didn't want to tell them what I was actually thinking. I kept it to myself, but I couldn't sleep that night, and many other nights after. The phone kept ringing, the landline, and I was too scared that I didn't even move to pick it up. It just kept ringing. I think my dad woke up a few times, but I didn't hear him talking to anyone, so I assumed there was no one on the other end. But from then on, that feeling of not feeling safe that I described a few moments ago increased. I was overwhelmed with a feeling of dread, torture. I felt watched, followed. I felt tormented by something that I couldn't quite comprehend. Things weren't going right for me either in my normal day-to-day life. It was bad luck after bad luck. I wasn't getting enough sleep. I was afraid all of the time, and everything was an uphill battle, both in my personal life, my uni life, and at work. Everything was dark, grim, ugly, unpleasant. I don't know how else to explain it, but this went on for months. Until one day, my mother asked me what was going on. I didn't go into details because I kind of felt ashamed of being afraid of the things I did, my obsession. I guess she didn't need the details, she kind of knew. And she gave me a small prayer card with a prayer to Archangel Michael and told me to repeat it over and over again. And so I did. Incredibly, things began to feel so much better. And I'm not even religious enough to pray. I went to Catholic school and Catholic university, but I never practiced praying as a conscious activity, only as part of the school and what you were supposed to do. But I read that prayer over and over again until I forgot about it. I got rid of that Ouija board and I never touched it again, and I never will. Fast forward to the present, to the beginning of this email. Yes, I see things, I sense things, and today I'm particularly in touch with that intuitive part of me, and I listen to it more. I trust what I feel and sense more than any fact. Sometimes things take time, but sooner or later, things that I think do come true, or they happen. That doesn't mean that I can see the future, or I want to play the lottery because I think I'll win. It's more an undescribable feeling, I guess. And yes, I maintain my interest in everything paranormal. I'm listening to this show week after week. You can call me a strong believer. I don't need to leave my disbelief at the door like you ask at the beginning of each episode. I enjoy horror films and documentaries, and I still see shadow people everywhere. You can still say I'm obsessed, maybe. but I'm not afraid. I'm very respectful. If I'm completely honest about the whole Ouija board situation, I'm not entirely sure if we were dealing with entities every single time, or if it was my own mind, or if the power of the mind is so strong, and since I don't understand exactly its strength nor how it works, I only access a minimum portion of it. Either way, what I am 100% certain now is that Ouija boards don't bring anything good. Ouija boards envelop you in a dark sensation. They drag you down. And that feeling, letting yourself get swept away by that darkness, taints everything. It leaves you without a shred of light. That's dangerous, and it was dangerous for me, and it plunged me into a state of a deteriorating mental health. Even though this piece of writing left a lot, and I do mean a lot of detail, out, I've tried to explain as best as I could. I apologise if this seems all over the place, and maybe not the best chronological-wise. But I recently performed, I'm an artist, a symbolic closure for my beloved grandma, which filled me with so much light. But that's maybe for another submission, since this one was very difficult for me to write, and the decision to send it in took me an exceptionally long time. I'm open to any questions you may have. Take care, choose light. Anonymous, Paraguay. Well, thank you so much to our Paraguayan listener there for sending in their anonymous submission. It's an interesting one because, if I'm being perfectly honest, I must confess to using the Ouija board alone myself numerous times, probably into the hundreds, because not many of my friends were into the paranormal either, unsurprisingly. So when I made my own Ouija board, no one wanted to play it. Because, as we've mentioned before, you will find mainly with skeptics, they will think the Ouija board is nonsense, but they won't play it. And it will be handed down to them from their parents. I don't want to see you playing with one of those. This happens, believe me. So I would be left alone. I remember using a 2p piece as a planchette. I think it worked maybe once, or should I say, there was one time where I was scared because it started working. Because I am one of those people who likes to push the envelope paranormal-wise until it starts happening, and then I think, I wish it didn't do that. But I would say, I do know of people who've had positive, or so allegedly called, positive experiences with the Ouija board. I think it's all about your mindset when approaching it. If, as you say, you went in kind of with a agitated, and it would appear, for want of a much better word, an almost aggressive attitude, trying to get a rise out of whoever you were speaking to, I think it builds into that idea of like attracts like. So if you are doing that, and then things start exploding around you, you have kind of brought that upon yourself. But we always have that argument, mainly by deeply religious people, and by the way, I'm not putting that down, that's their belief system and that's fine, that anything that comes through looking positive or acting as a child is a demon, and that the board itself can only contact demons, nothing good can come through it. How I'd kind of go against that would be to say, wouldn't you find it strange if this one item could only summon evil? If that could happen, what would be the point in angels, for example? And I mean that in terms of you can't have black without white. Black infers white by its very existence. So if you say you have something that can only bring demons through, it must automatically also allow angels through. Unless anyone could explain the back sort of map, I suppose, about why only demons can come through. And nobody can, because that's when you're getting into people, like I said last week, who say, I'm an expert in demonology. No such thing. I guess there is. Sorry, I apologize. Let me correct myself. There is, in terms of, like I said, if you're talking about somebody who has studied texts about demons in the past, I guess that person could call themselves a demonologist. As in, I know the writings about Baal or Baal even from 1622, and I could tell you who wrote it, etc., how long it took. Perfect. Call yourself a demonologist, I will eat my hat. But anyone who says, that's not how demons work, they only go through this place because I've seen XYZ and I've summoned a demon. Great, take a photo. And when looking at both the dark and the light, if both are unprovable, it doesn't mean they're not there. But what's that saying? Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. So it could just be a case of maybe they don't want recording. I myself once actually owned 2 photographs which I couldn't explain. They were not mine. They were given to me by people who knew I was into the paranormal. One was about 26 years ago. One was about 15 years ago. They're somewhere in this house, funnily enough, but I just couldn't tell you where. One is of a wispy sort of smoke that seems to take form over 3 photographs that were taken way before mobile phones in quick succession. And it's of a dog, a new dog that a friend of mine had. They were taking photographs of it on their staircase. And these 3 photographs, when they were developed, they shone above the dog's head. A wispy smoke started to appear. Nobody smoked in the house. And what's interesting is, on photograph 1, 2, and 3, the dog clearly begins looking up as that smoke gets bigger. No one saw smoke. So I had those photographs, couldn't tell you where they are. And I also had an amazing, more scary photograph, which was a summer's day. Somebody gave it to me when I worked in a call centre. It was a summer's day. They'd taken a photograph of a stately home in the UK. And they wanted to get the full stately home in, so they obviously went rather far back to get the full expanse of this place in. Now, there's obviously people going around. It's the middle of summer. It's a tourist destination. So they're kind of really small within the photograph. What is clearly made out within that photograph, however, is a man dressed in what appears to be a butler's tuxedo, stood in front of the people with no head. But because, say that's the size of the photograph, and for those on audio, I'm making, say, the size of an A4 sheet of paper, then these figures, indeed every human in the photograph, is maybe a centimetre large, 2 centimetres large, if it was an A4 size photograph. But this is most definitely a human being, it's most definitely a butler uniform, and it most definitely had no head, because you could see the people behind where its head should be. And that's the one photograph I do wish I still had, but I still couldn't tell you where they went. So maybe once they are caught on tape, they want to get rid of them themselves. I'm open to that idea also. But Anonymous, I want to say a big thank you. You say it was really hard to get this over, and I genuinely appreciate you taking the time to write it out. The thought of you heading towards your grandma's and seeing your grandma, but not your grandma, look back at you, and you turning around, that's nightmare fuel. I'm trying not to think about that too much, because I'm placing my own grandma as your grandma. And also it's very interesting that your head started to drop. And also what's interesting and slightly concerning, if I'm being totally honest, is your use of the word obsessed. Because as you'll know, within possession terminology, obsession is one of the first stages of possession. But I don't want to scare anyone, and you are interested in the topic. Maybe you use the word obsession just to literally mean a big fan of the paranormal. And if you're watching this, I imagine you are. I am, and so is anyone who listens. Now, before you head off, a quick shout again about our Patreon. It's an amazing group of like-minded people very welcoming, whether you're a believer, skeptic, atheist, religious. Our only rule over there is be nice. Because I've seen and been in many forums, as I said last week, where it's all about hierarchy, it's all about I'm a demonologist, etc. And it's nothing to do with the paranormal, it's about egos. This place, this Patreon, is a wonderful place to discuss. There are wonderful people within. And dependent on your tier, you can also get an hour's worth of extra programming each and every week. But I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us, whether you're listening, whether you're watching. And if you do one simple thing, if you can't support the show via Patreon, that's fine. Share the show. Or right now, wherever you're listening or watching, you can literally get your device or your laptop or whichever, click follow or subscribe. And that really helps us with algorithms and things. And you're doing something to help the show for free. And, well, that would just be fantastic if you did. And next week's Dark Paranormal episode is an episode about a known entity. Or should I say a known paranormal case? Because episode 3, 6, and 9 of this season, we're going to take a look at some of the lesser known but better known paranormal cases that already exist in the world. And next week we begin with episode 3. So I'm really looking forward to that. In the meantime, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Stay safe, take care, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.